Okay, not gonna do any spoilers in this, but if it's in the trailers, it's fair game. Cool? Cool.
I miss you, mate.
So after bringing in a new director and delaying production so 3 of its stars could be in the Odyssey, we finally have a new MCU Spider-Man installment after nearly 5 years with Brand New Day. And in a move pulled from the comics industry where a title gets a new author in between company-wide reboots, we've got a new status quo without blowing up the entire continuity and starting over from scratch. Thanks to the events of No Way Home, the world has forgotten Tom Holland's Peter Parker ever existed. Spider-Man's been finding success over the past 4 years as a street-level hero in New York City, but still misses the love of his life and best friend in MJ and Ned. Things get messy when he learns the pair are moving back to NYC. His work-life imbalance is starting to cause his powers to mutate, and there's a new villain in town wreaking havoc by jumping telepathically from person to person. I couldn't help but shake the feeling between the trailers and the many casting announcements that this film was headed for the same pitfalls as Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, where the film would be overstuffed by bringing in too many characters and plot lines. Not only is the film trying to revert back to a more standard Spider-Man story after going international and multiversal in its last 2 films, but it's also trying to mix in multiple lower-tier villains, damage control, the Hand, appearances from both John Barenthal's Punisher and Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, plot beats from the comic storyline The Other, and potentially building towards Peter becoming Man-Spider, and everything going on with Sadie Sink. And while the film starts to buckle under the weight of the attempted juggling act a few times, overall it still works. I'd put it up there with Thunderbolts and Guardians 3 as one of the best things to come out of the MCU post-Endgame. And while No Way Home was laser-focused on making my generation's jaw hit the floor, there's a real chance this one stands the test of time better than that one has. Regardless of what the MCU has planned for Spider-Man going forward with its big events, I'd love to see more installments like this. If the Sam Raimi trilogy was embodying the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko era in the Amazing films when they were about anything, we're trying to channel Ultimate Spider-Man, Brand New Day takes quite a few notes from the recent Insomniac PlayStation games. Peter is now an out-of-school 20-something, his rogues gallery is already established, and he's struggling to balance being Spider-Man with having any kind of personal life. And with the exception of just letting him grow up and have a family with MJ, I'd argue this is the best version of Peter Parker when it comes to storytelling, regardless of what so many comic authors have claimed over the decades. Tom Holland once again shows the world why he's excellent in this role. As Spider-Man, he's as quippy and upbeat as ever, and as Peter, he's bearing the weight of denying himself happiness he thinks he doesn't deserve out of a sense of responsibility and self-persecution. The quintessential Spider-Man experience. His chemistry with Zendaya has always been a highlight, and it makes for some of the film's best moments once she's added back in the second half. And while I'm sure folks will complain that we've got yet another film where Spider-Man teams up with an MCU mainstay, his banter with Barenthal's Punisher is downright infectious. Despite being one of Marvel's most dour characters, having Frank here is a reminder that, at the end of the day, this stuff is supposed to be fun. Destin Daniel Cretton proves to be a fantastic fit as a director for this franchise. The creativity he had for action sequences back in Shang-Chi are on full display, leading to not only the best web swinging we've ever gotten in live action, but also the best fight scenes. Like, I put Spider-Man 2 on a pedestal like any millennial, but in terms of fights, Spidey's scraps with the Hand, Scorpion, and a mind-controlled Hulk blow his fights with Doc Ock out of the water. By the way, this is the best Hulk we've had since at least Infinity War, and I really hope the Russos don't derail that later. Cretton also proves that his work with Wonder Man wasn't a fluke, and while the action scenes are gorgeous, it's the quieter moments that pack the biggest emotional punch. So while the big climax, which thankfully hasn't been spoiled, isn't some big final fight, it still works as a satisfying conclusion. And then there's Sadie Sink, whose entire thing is going to be tiptoed around and all of these non-spoiler reviews. I'll say this, while her character is not typically an antagonist, the film kicks into a higher gear whenever she's on screen, either as herself or puppeteering someone else. The movie gets a ton of mileage out of her mind-hopping ability, including a fantastic gut-punching rug pull about halfway through. And yes, even though you can piece together where her story is going long before Peter does, I still enjoyed how she's used in the third act, and thankfully they don't take that character down the most obvious and painfully overdone path. But her inclusion isn't without issues. For one, the film feels way too proud with itself with her identity reveal, and who and what she is such a big deal that the film effectively has to stop to give her full backstory and motivation. It's all well done, but it's not really connected to Spider-Man, so there's this chunk at the start of the third act where he's off screen and it's kind of jarring. It also feels like the screen time dedicated to her could have been used instead to keep going with his mutating power storyline, though I imagine that's something they'll keep digging into if and when we get another installment. Also, there's this death fake out near the end that, while it works in the moment, upon reflection it felt a little too self-congratulatory for Spider-Man as a brand. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a studio note from Sony so that the pissing contest between them and Disney can continue through the next round of negotiations. We find ourselves in an uncertain time for superhero films. The Paramount Warner Brothers deal might not be as locked in as we thought even a month ago. The Doomsday trailer was concerning, and so have the backstage stories, but the hype for Comic-Con seems to have pushed it to the side. Bringing in Ryan Gosling and David Johnson are both great castings that prove the MCU might still have a few aces up their sleeves. We have to wait even longer for another Batman, and I'm still crossing my fingers that Beyond the Spider-Verse will see the light of day before the next presidential election. And yet in the midst of all of it, we've got ourselves another Spider-Man. It's not perfect, it doesn't fully shake the problems many modern superhero films have, it's not Spider-Verse, but it's still a fun time that left me wanting to see even more. But what did you guys think? When you do get to see this one, let me know what you thought down in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.